I thought it would be appropriate to show when you first entered my journal.
Oh.
So, Park
What
had,
did you say about me in that first one?
It's
Was it
really
anything
embarrassing.
Make no mistake about it. You were born to be a true millennial.
All right, welcome to True Millennial. I am here today with my wife, Lexi.
Yes.
And we are going to tell our story of how we first met. Now, Lex is my best friend, my wife. We have 3 kids. We are very happily married. We don't have a perfect marriage, but we have a pretty awesome marriage, wouldn't you say?
I would say. I would agree.
We saw the Lord's hand in getting us together. We have a very long story. We're going to try and keep it as short as possible. But my testimony of God honestly started strong with this relationship, with her coming into my life, her motivating me to be a better person, to grow closer to God. And we just saw a lot of miracles throughout our entire life together, leading us to each other. And so one of my biggest testimonies of my Heavenly Father and His divine hand is this person that's sitting here with me today. She is a big influence on who I've become and why I'm doing this True Millennial. We have nightly chats, and we hope to have some nightly chats here with all of you and just share some of our thoughts openly. But this will be our first chat, which is just going to be sharing our story of how we met.
I'm not as great on camera as Park, not as practiced.
We're trying to get her in front of the camera more. Neither of us like being in front of the camera, but she's going to take one for the team and get on the camera more often.
Stretch myself a little.
So I will just start off by saying that, and this is, again, a condensed version. I wrote like a 50-page paper, short story on our entire story. This is going to be about a third of that, and it's still going to be over an hour long. So the first time I met Lex was walking on the way to a football practice when I was a senior in high school. She actually wasn't in school with me in high school. I was a senior. She was a freshman, but she was on the freshman tennis team. And as I was walking to football practice one day, I saw this cute little brown girl. I always liked athletic girls and short girls because I was short. And so I was immediately drawn to her, just radiant, beautiful. And so I'd walk by practice and I'd always look for her and spot her and think, man, that's a cute girl. But I recognized that she was a freshman, so there wasn't really much I could do about it. She was 15, wasn't really eligible. So anyway, that was the first time I saw her and was just drawn to her. But months would go by and I'd never actually talked to her. Then spring came around and she ran track, I ran track. But again, track season went by, never talked to her, but we saw each other here and there. But that summer, I went through one of the darkest times of my life. I had just gotten my mission call to go to Uruguay. Again, I was dating a girl. We won't disclose any names in this, but it wasn't the healthiest relationship. And I got into a really dark place. And I remember one day to the next, my whole life turned upside down. And I just felt an overwhelming darkness in my life. And it turned into severe anxiety and depression. And I didn't even know if I would go out on my mission, honestly, because it was so debilitating. And this went on for weeks, months, and I got to a point where I didn't know if it would ever end. And I remember just praying to my Heavenly Father at night to please let me feel some kind of normality, just neutrality. I don't even have to be happy or joyful. I just want to get this darkness away from me. And still to this day, I'm not sure how it came on or what caused it. I think partially or maybe wholly, it was just Satan's presence in my life trying to keep me off my mission because he knew that it would be the foundation that would propel the rest of my life. And so anyway, a very dark time. So in the midst of this really dark time, I again would see Lex around. When I saw her, it wasn't just her beauty. She is beautiful, but I could just feel something different about her. There was a presence about her, and I wanted to know what it was. And so I asked her, one of her friends who knew her, I said, do you know this girl? Can you tell me what it is about her that I'm so drawn to besides her obvious beauty? And this friend said, she's honestly one of the most obedient girls I've ever met. She lives the gospel, loves the gospel. And And at the time, I'd grown up in the church and loved the gospel as well, but I didn't live it the way this girl was living it. And so it was an instant motivator to me to want to be worthy of whatever this woman possessed. I wanted to be worthy of that and possess it as well. So I asked this friend, I said, can you introduce me? Because I'd love to meet her and have that influence in my life. So one summer night, we had this friend get us together and meet and exchange phone numbers, and was able to start getting to know her. And a few weeks went by of that. And then right before my mission, about a week or two before, she was
trying to run for a class office.
Running for a class office, needed a video done.
Yeah.
And at the time I was starting to get started in video. And she texted me and said, hey, can you help me with a video? It was due the next day.
Just a few hours away.
I should have known what I was getting into with this woman.
That was a real red flag right there.
And so she came over, and that was the first night we actually hung out and spent some time together. Was just editing a video together and chatting. And while we were chatting, I just felt, man, this woman, she is it. And so we spent maybe an hour together. And then after that night, I took a picture of myself because I wanted to remember the night that I met the girl that I wanted to marry. And the funny thing is, my dad was in the room next to us, didn't even see her or either of us. He was just watching TV in the next room and just heard us conversating. And he had the same impression. He said, I don't know who that is, but I feel like there's chemistry going on over there, and I think Parker's going to marry whoever's in that room with him. So my dad and I both got the same impression. For some reason, she didn't get the impression. But I was set. That was it. I was 18 years old, about to go on a mission, and I knew who I wanted to marry. And it was this woman right here. But anyway, so a couple weeks go by, and right before I go on my mission, I write her a letter and basically just thanked her for being this little angel that had been plopped into my life during a very dark time and brought some light, and just motivated me to know what life could be if you live the gospel. And it was from that moment of taking that picture of myself that I wanted to be worthy of that light in my life. I wanted to obtain it for myself, and I wanted to be worthy. It wasn't necessarily that I had to marry her, but I wanted to marry. She set the standard. She set the expectation of, okay, I know there's something out there like this, and I want that, and I want to be worthy of that. And so the 2 years that I served as a missionary, during those hard days where you just don't feel like going out, I'd think about her, and I'd think, nope, I got to do this because I got a long ways to go to be worthy of that awesome girl that has the light of Christ. And eventually I got to a place where I could stand on my own 2 feet and developed my own relationship with Jesus Christ and learn to love the Lord and learn to love the light that came from living the gospel, and didn't have to rely on her, but all the while was thinking of that was just that extra motivation.
Luckily he didn't know me very well. Because, I
knew her plenty.
Yeah.
I'll share an awesome quote towards the end that described what I felt during that time.
Well, I feel like I should pick up right here.
Yeah, please do.
So, just since you had come on the scene, I thought it would be appropriate to show when you first entered my journal.
Oh.
So, I don't know if my camera can see, but this is my first journal entry about you, and, a letter from you to me. Then we started writing letters. So Park
What did you say about me in that first one?
It's really embarrassing. Just middle school, childish stuff that
she was 15.
care about. Yeah. You saved my life with that whole video thing.
It's an important video.
And yeah, you were a pretty cool guy and stuff like that. So, but that first letter that he wrote me, I responded to it naturally, and that actually kind of started our writing on his mission. So
we wrote 5 or 6 times, like every 3 or 4 months, just casually as friends. So I served my mission, loved my mission, was able to overcome that depression and anxiety and darkness that I had experienced for probably 6 or 7 months, even leaking into my mission. But just seeing that stark contrast of darkness and then light that was obtained by living and sharing the gospel, I just knew that this is what I wanted in life. I wanted to live and love this gospel for forever. And I wanted to find somebody that would join me in that venture. And so when I got home from my mission, she was my first date back, and only happened because of the mother-in-law.
And I was a senior in high school.
At this time, she was a senior, and an RM trying to date a senior, they're not stoked about the RMs at that point. And so Tammy, her wonderful mother, was in my corner from day one and always trying to get us together and go on dates. And so huge kudos to Tammy for getting us on that first date.
Yeah, her and Al had a similar vibe. They kind of...
My dad, Al.
Yeah,
they were both trying to get that to work out.
Yeah.
So anyway, it doesn't hurt to have the mother-in-law of the girl of your dreams on your side.
Yes, it's helpful.
So Tammy helped us get on that first date, and we had an awesome first date. And then we went on a second date, and first date is first kiss, or second date is first kiss, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I'm prepping to have that first kiss. And so I set up a little movie and even told my buddy who we were double dating with, okay, you guys go upstairs and get some popcorn and it'll give us the opportunity to have a kiss. This
is the proof that he really did not know me very well.
Didn't know her well. And I didn't know myself very well either, because I am not able to make moves on a girl. And of course I didn't make a move, but we did have a little cuddle session, and she could tell from that first date, that first cuddle session, apparently, that I loved her.
Well, yes, it was.
I wasn't good at hiding my feelings, I guess.
It wasn't like he was over the top or, creepy or anything, but like I just could sense in the truest sense, I knew that he absolutely loved me.
And that scared the crap out of her.
Yes, naturally, as I'm 17,
So as I'm texting her the next few days, I just don't hear from her. She's gone.
Well, I should preface this by when we were together, I would have the time of my life. We connected, we'd have so much fun. It was easy. It was natural. It was wonderful. And I would have a great time. And then the second, and I knew, and I felt that just genuine love from Park. And so it was wonderful when I was with him, as long as we were, not too close.
Yeah.
And then
as soon as I showed any sense of moving past just like really good friends.
And then as soon as I would leave, I would think, this boy loves me. And that is so scary. So then Which
was understandable.
Right.
Right. And so I understood it. She probably could have handled it a little bit better. But I just would stop hearing from her. And I was like, all right, I guess, she's in high school, so we'll just give her some space. So she'd ghost me. And so a few months would go by, wouldn't hear from her. But every summer, we'd reconnect again, and we'd start hanging out and doing some yoga together, or playing tennis, or, just little...
Go to the temple.
Yeah, go to the temple. So we would reconnect and become friends every summer. But as soon as we would have a cuddle session, she'd be gone.
Yeah. Yes. It's true what he says.
As soon as she could sense that I might kiss her, she would run for the hills.
We really had a lot of fun though.
Oh, yeah.
And we were great friends, and we enjoyed doing the same stuff. So it was natural that we would hang out and spend a lot of time together.
Best friends. And I thought I might never get out of that friend zone. So the second round, this is a year after that first day. I've been home a year now.
I'm trying to decide where to go to college.
Yeah, Lex is trying to decide where to go to college. And so I invite her down to UVU, where I was going to school at the time. And I showed her around UVU campus and BYU campus. And one of the best nights of my life.
It was really fun.
As I dropped her off after that night, I just listened to Enchanted by Taylor Swift and was just in love and just knew that everything was going to work out. Unfortunately, I cuddled with her that night, which meant I wouldn't hear from her for another 6 months.
Big mistake.
Huge mistake. Yeah. But she ended up going to BYU and I was at UVU. And all the while, keep in mind, she keeps on ghosting me. But in the back of my mind, I just think, you know what? Like, I'm in this for the long haul. I've already received my revelation that we're meant to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to screw this up by throwing a fit and saying, how dare you stop. Yes, she could have handled it better. But my advice to guys who are dating is just be cool and confident enough just to, even though I didn't feel confident at all, I was devastated, but just to pretend like, no worries, we'll catch you next year. And I call that going into my spirit and getting out of my mind and my body, because the body wants to lash out and tell her, I can't believe you. But I'd go into my spirit and just say, okay, it's okay. Be patient. We can, maybe next year it'll work out. And so I wouldn't ever lash out. And that ended up being vital to us ending up working out.
Yeah. Because I mean, this wasn't just something I did to Park. I had a pattern. I had a problem. But like anytime things got like to the point of, you know, it could maybe develop into something, I did burn a lot of bridges. And the standard reaction with pretty much every other boy was to like guilt trip me, to be really mad and, you know, and rude, and then try and hurt my feelings and stuff, which they did a great job. Anyways, and it was well earned. Like, I'm not trying to say that it wasn't merited. It absolutely was. But that was the one thing that really did set him apart from everyone else, was that he took it with grace.
Well, I
patience.
I knew she was out of my league, and I knew the only way I was going to have a chance with this girl is if I could be different in different areas. I wasn't going to wow her with my, you know, she went and dated a bunch of college athletes, and that wasn't me. I was the short 5'7" guy that wasn't, I couldn't fill those kinds of shoes, but what I could do was be on a similar spiritual level to her. And so that's what I was striving for all this time, was to be in my spirit, to be my best version of myself. And, you know, even through all these college years, there was times where I wanted to, you know, let's go party and just relax a little bit with this gospel stuff. And she was just one of those anchors that just was like, no, like, what do you want more? Do you want to go have fun for a weekend and do something stupid? Or do you want to marry an eternal partner that you're going to have an amazing relationship with forever? And so she was just always in the back of my mind, like a mother, just keeping me in line. But it was what I wanted most. There was stuff I wanted now, but she, or at least someone like her, is what I wanted most. And so that was a motivating factor to just become every day a better version of myself. So anyway, this is where the miracles start. So she ghosts me round 2 there, and she ends up going to BYU, and I didn't see her probably for 5 or 6 months since that time I showed her around UVU and BYU. Please.
This is my part of the story, right? So one day I was at a BYU game. Park was at that same game. We hadn't spoken for a long time. And my friend, I was trying to go find my friend Sarah, and sit with her for a little bit. And so I was texting her and I said, okay, where are you at? She's like, oh, I'm in this section and this seat. And it was literally on the complete opposite end of the stadium from me. And I was like, okay, well, I'll be there in 20 minutes, and started making my way around. So anyways, I get to the other side and walk up to that section and that row and that seat. And as I look over, who stands before me but Park instead of my friend Sarah. And I'm like, hi. Shoot.
It was the exact seat that her friend had given her, and she was nowhere to be found.
Yeah, it was like, bizarre.
Is Sarah here? And I'm like, no, I'm here. I haven't seen Sarah anywhere. She was nowhere even close to where I was sitting, but Sarah had given her my exact seat number in a stadium of like, I don't know, 50,000 people.
Yeah.
Sarah gave her my seat number. And so she was like, and she just comes and sits down, and we.
I walked all the way over there, and I couldn't be like, "Hi, I'm looking for Sarah." Okay.
Bye. So she was kind enough to sit down.
I sat down, and we had a good talk.
So we caught up, and I honestly had kind of not gotten over her completely, but had put her out of my mind. Like, I'm dating around and going on with life, and for her just to pop up at the verge of me just like getting over her and pushing her out of my mind forever, God would just bring her back and say, "Hey, remember her? Remember her?" And I didn't want to remember her because she kept ghosting me. But God would just kept putting her in my life in just the weirdest scenarios like that. And so we chatted for a half hour, caught up. I felt that burning fire of love for her again. And then she walked away out of my life, never to be seen again for who knows how long. Yeah. But I just sat there like, well, that was strange.
Yeah, no, it was not a coincidence. Like, it was a miracle.
Yeah.
That was one of our many, but.
So I wouldn't hear from her for, again, a few months. And I was at UVU and was trying to date around, and anyone who lives in Provo just knows the nightmare that is the dating scene in Provo. And unless you're very aggressive, you just don't thrive in that environment. And I wasn't very aggressive. And so after a year and a half at UVU, I just said, I can't do this. And so I made a decision, moved down to SUU and started going to school there. I just at that point had kind of given up on this beautiful woman and thought, you know what, if it's right, it'll be right. But I can't just sit around here in Provo if I don't feel like this is right for me. And so I moved with Faith to SUU and started dating around there. And honestly, had a much better dating experience down there, much smaller school, much more catered to someone who's introverted and not super aggressive. And so I actually started dating someone down there. At this time, Lex and I were kind of on a texting basis. We had kind of reconnected a little bit. And right before I was about to start dating this girl, I just wanted to check to see, you know, where is she at? Should I just move on completely? You know, if I start dating somebody, this might move into marriage, and that could be it, you know? And so I just wanted to check in. So I said, "Hey, how's it going? Hey, just wanted to let you know that I'm starting to date somebody." And I was hoping for her to say, "Oh no, don't do that. Don't date someone. Come date me instead." But instead she said, "Oh, me too." And my heart just melted. Like, oh, dang it. So I was hoping that she would want to pull me out of doing that, but she was already dating somebody. And so it's like, all right.
It's like, great, Park.
That's it's time awesome. To move on, like, I guess. And so I'd kind of given up hope at this point. I was like, all right, time to move on with life and just date other people. So I start dating this other girl, and she was actually Catholic. And even though I was devout Latter-day Saint and knew that I was only going to marry someone in the temple, just what my goal had always been in life, and I just wanted to marry someone who had the same standards and religious beliefs that I did. But I was very prayerful about dating this girl. I felt really good about it, that I should start dating this Catholic girl. And so we start dating, and a few months go by, and we start progressing in that relationship. We get to a point where it's like, all right, if we're going to keep going, we have to kind of get on the same page here religiously and kind of talk about this. So I start sharing with her my faith and say, you know, this is really important to me. And so I started introducing her to the gospel, and she was doing it to be nice, you know, going along with it. But after about 4 or 5 months, I could tell that she really wasn't interested in it. And we were kind of at a crossroads there, trying to figure out, should we keep dating? Shouldn't we? And that's when the next miracle happened. So Lex's friend Sarah, again, was about to get married. This was in the spring now, so I'd gone almost a full year at SUU. And she was marrying one of my best friends, Brady. And so we were both going to be attending this wedding together. And so they paired us up to be each other's dates at this wedding, naturally, because we already knew each other. And so even though we were dating other people, they set us up as each other's date. And so we hadn't talked probably in, I don't know, since that time I texted her to ask if she wanted to date me instead of whoever she was dating. And so we are each other's date at this wedding, having dinner together and doing photo shoots together. And again, just kind of catching up. And we just keep meeting up in these situations where we're just brought together at very crucial times. And this was an especially crucial time because that night, again, mother-in-law stepping in big right here. She could have given Lex a ride home, but she went home early and said, "Hey, Park, can you give Lex a ride home? I got to go." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, sure." Good job, Tammy. And so I give Lex a ride home from the wedding. And on the way home, we just kind of catching up. I said, "So, how's things going with your boyfriend?"
I just started crying, I think, and just said, I feel like I'm supposed to go on a mission. And just, I don't know, kind of a backstory is that I was actually almost going to marry this guy, and we had gone so far as we had a date and a dress and a ring and everything. And thankfully, I've actually since realized what a blessing it was that he was in tune enough with the Spirit to call it off. Because he was the one that called off the wedding at least, but we were still dating. So it was kind of rough for me emotionally, so, but
at this point she's pretty much engaged. She has a wedding dress. She's just kind of waiting for him to actually give her the ring.
Yeah. So
she's basically engaged.
Yeah.
And I'm at a point in my relationship where I'm either having to move forward with progressing towards engagement or deciding this isn't going to work because of our religious differences. And so I'm at a tough spot in my relationship trying to figure out what to do there, whether to break up or move forward. She's in a tough spot where she's basically engaged, but has been feeling, this is actually just when they had made the age change for missionaries. And so up until a few months earlier, she wasn't even eligible to go on a mission because she was 20.
I was 19.
19. Again, another miracle that God changed the age for missionaries because she always wanted to serve a mission.
Yeah.
But didn't know if she'd make it to 21. And when she's 19, the church changes the eligibility age for girls to be able to go when they're 19 when she was 19.
Yeah. It was like God did that for me. Truly. It felt that way to me at the time. But so I was cheering and under contract, couldn't leave right when they made that announcement. And so I was stuck there at school for a few more months. And in that time, I decided that I thought I was going to get married instead. And the Lord, the Lord intervened for me, and I'm grateful that, because I don't know if I would have had the strength to course correct and do what I was meant to do. And so I'm really grateful for getting dumped, in that way, getting the wedding called off. Like it was a miracle again for me. Obviously, like the emotional aftermath of that for me at the time was pretty bleak. And that's when Park and I connected again.
So on that ride home,
yeah,
I say, so how's things going with your boyfriend? And she breaks down, and I'm just kind of like, oh, whoa. Hit a nerve there.
He didn't know me very well. The gift to weep. That's my gift, my spiritual gift.
So she breaks down to me and just says, I know that I'm supposed to go on a mission, but I can't get out of this relationship. We're on track to get married, but so she just didn't know what to do. And I was in the same spot with my relationship. I didn't know what to do. And so we just chatted for the next couple hours in her driveway. And that was kind of the answer I needed, was to know that she knew that she was getting the answer that she had to go on a mission. And I just knew in that moment that she was going to serve a mission, and I was going to make sure she got on that mission. Not even for my own sake, but for her own sake. I always felt like if she can just get out on a mission, she will get into her most spiritual self, and she'll recognize that some of these guys that she's been dating don't quite know her the way I do. From day one, I just saw something different about her, this light, this thing that was so different. And everyone else saw the outer shell, the beauty of her, and got so fixated on that. And I, of course, love that as well. But I knew there was something deeper there. And I could just sense that most guys couldn't understand that part of her. And I said, if she could just get out on a mission, she'd recognize that we have something different. We connect on a spiritual level. And she'll be able to tell that, you know, I'm not maybe the big star athlete, but I know her spirit, and our spirits can connect, and we can have an amazing marriage and relationship. And so that was my hopes, is that she would go on a mission, and I was determined to help her get on it.
And he did, yeah. That was the next miracle for me, honestly, was that Park believed in me and just assured me that I could do it. I could go. He would help me prepare and support me in that. And we were both home again, you know, just down the street from each other at that time. And
well, so that night, just to rewind, when I dropped her off from that wedding and had gotten that unload from her about how she was basically planning on abandoning this almost marriage and going on a mission, I went straight from dropping her off to picking up my girlfriend from the airport. She was coming to my brother's wedding that was the next day. So I was going to be spending all weekend with my girlfriend and at a crossroads trying to figure out if I was going to be breaking that off or moving forward. Having that conversation with Lexi and seeing her being willing to act on and do something that she knew she was supposed to do, even though it was really hard and wasn't easy and wasn't comfortable. And I was feeling the same thing, like I needed to break this off, but I was comfortable in this relationship and it was going well, minus the really important stuff that we were just trying to avoid. And just seeing her strength, you know, she talks about how I gave her strength, but she gave me just as much strength to know, okay, I got to follow this spiritual prompting that I'm getting and break this off. And shortly after, broke it off and told her that I think we need a break. And so at this point, it's the summer and she's trying to get out of her relationship. I'm trying to break out of mine. And we were just kind of there for each other, supporting each other that summer. Yeah.
Like every other summer, pretty much.
Every summer, just
summer love. That was our pattern. But yeah, it was awesome. We just got to spend a lot of time together again. And the next miracle really for me was Dr. Matt. So I went over to my friend Sarah's house. Sarah's a big part of, you know.
Sarah's also one of the, you got Tammy, the mother-in-law.
Yep.
You got Sarah, key players.
Dr. Matt.
Getting us together, keeping us chugging along.
Yeah. So we owe a lot to other people for helping us make it happen. But I was over at my friend Sarah's house. Her dad is Dr. Matt Townsend. And as her mom started asking me how my relationship was going, what was going on when I was getting married. And I, of course, start crying that things are not going well. And she's like, I'm just going to get Matt in here. So she stepped out and let him step in. And he invited me to his office. And anyways, he also really gave me the strength to do what I knew I was supposed to do. And he gave Park a lot of strength also as we were waiting, as he was patiently waiting for us to align in our ultimate goals.
We'll get to Matt Townsend in my life in a minute, but just an instrumental man in helping us get real and seeing life as it really is. So if anyone needs relationship advice, go see Dr. Matt. He is honestly a miracle worker and is a huge reason why we ended up together.
Yep.
So during this time periods when we're both getting out of our relationship. She's preparing for a mission. And we were just having nightly chats, not nightly, but weekly or so chats where, she'd be struggling with something and not feeling like she's ready to go on a mission. And I'd just be there to motivate her. And when I had first gotten home from my mission and around our first date time, a few years earlier, she had given me a book to read called The Peace Giver. And in that book, there was a quote that perfectly described how I felt about her. And in the moment, I wanted to share it with her and say, this is how I feel about you. But I was trying to play it cool. It was around our first date. And so I said, I'm going to save this quote for just the right time. And fast forward 2-3 years later, she's again breaking down to me. We're in my car and she's saying, I just don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'll be able to get out on my mission. And the Spirit said, share that quote, give her that strength she needs to move past this. And so I said, Lex, I know that it's hard for you to see who you really are right now because you're feeling very broken. But I want to share with you a quote from that book you gave me a few years ago that perfectly described who you are and how I've always seen you. And hopefully it can help you understand who you really are.
Yeah, because I had lost that at that point. So
she was in a broken period and lost all confidence in who she was. And I was just trying to remind her of the true person she was. And so I shared the quote, and it reads like this: we all shine forth a portion of the Lord's glory, and we shine more brightly when we are living closest to Him. Usually we do not perceive this light with our eyes, but you have felt it at times when you have been in the presence of saintly men and women, those who so fully reflect the Savior's light that it is tangible, if not visible, to those around them. To be in their presence is like being in the presence of a perfectly sung note. Their lives resonate. They pierce, they move, they motivate, they sing, and this because they live in tune with the Master. And I told her that she was one of those saintly women, and that she had been that since the day I first met her, that I could see that light radiating off of her when I was in my darkest moment. And of course, she just starts bawling, and it's like, okay, yes, that's true. That is who I'm supposed to be, and who I know that I can be, and who she really was, but didn't feel like she was at the moment. But anyway, it was an awesome moment for us where we were able to connect on that spiritual level. And
it helped give me the strength. And I had, obviously, my parents, my family, my brother, some other important conversations that helped me wake up a little bit and recognize that I could do it. And so it was a swift change. Once I made the decision, I think within 2 weeks, I had my papers filled out and completed. And 2 weeks later, I had my call. And I was leaving, like, from the time that I submitted my papers till the time I left, it was like 6 weeks. So the Lord knew, like...
Which was also a miracle. Her brother had gotten his call a month earlier and was leaving like 2 months later.
Yeah.
And so she had gotten it all call and left within 6 weeks, which isn't normal for a mission call.
Yeah. The Lord, that was a miracle. The Lord knew that, okay, she's decided, let's hurry and push her out the door before she changes her mind. So anyways, I found myself in the Philippines very soon after all of that. So Park and I did write again, not too frequently, but enough, just kind of similarly as we did on his mission. And those were really special experiences to kind of get to know each other in that way. As we each served, we got to support each other through our missions. And it was interesting because as the next miracle for me, honestly, was just that, I had always really felt like Park was one of my best friends and enjoyed so much being with him. And knew he loved me, obviously, and my mom had just so many times said, Lex, just give him a chance, and would you just kiss him, and would you just see, like, would you just try? And I was always like, no, Mom, we're just friends. But I think that the Lord knew that if I would have seen him the way he saw me, I wouldn't have served. And so that's like a promise from my patriarchal blessing that I'd know when the time was right. And it was interesting because as soon as I kind of got onto my mission, I had a moment of clarity, like, what have I been doing for the last 5 years at this point? You know, like, how did I not see what was right in front of me? Like, anyways. So I started to like recognize at that point, like, oh my goodness, like he adores me and he loves the Lord and he knows he loves me for who I really am. And, you know, like he's a wonderful guy. Like, why haven't I given this a real shot?
I was like a 7 out of 10. It's pretty good.
So anyways, it became more apparent for me once I was on my mission, safely on my mission, where we couldn't do anything about it. So we just wrote casually as friends. Continued.
Right. So while she was on her mission, and I was so grateful to get her out there. I mean, again, even just for her sake, but you know, for my sake as well, I felt like if she would get out there, that she would feel what she ended up feeling. And she didn't tell me that until we ended up getting married. Of course,
that's when I expressed my love. Finally, was across the altar.
Of course, she's not going to share any of these feelings with me at any point.
Oh my gosh.
So it's just a constant guessing game the entire time. But while she's on her mission, this girl that I had broken off with because of our religious differences, she moved back home, hit a low, just realized that she didn't actually want to have that lifestyle anymore. It wasn't making her happy like she thought it would. So she, on her own, called up the missionaries locally, took the missionary discussions, and called me up. We were still in touch. We weren't dating, but she said, hey, I'm taking the missionary discussions and I have some questions and would love to, you know, have somebody there that I can talk to that I trust. And so for the next few months, she's going through the missionary discussions, and I get another phone call from her. And this time she said, I'm ready to get baptized. And it was so interesting for me because I could sense that there was something different. And I knew that she had actually received a personal witness and had been converted. And so I agreed. I said, yeah, I'll be happy to baptize you. And that weekend that I baptized her, she basically said, you know, I feel like the reason we broke up was because of this religious difference. And not that I did it for this, but now that we are on a similar page now, I feel like you should give this another chance. That was the biggest reason why I didn't feel it was right. And I think I should give it another chance. And so I spent the next couple of weeks praying about it and felt like, yeah, I'll give it another chance. And so, but in that process, I had to do one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. All this while, we're going on almost 6 years now since I took that picture and knew I found the girl I wanted to marry. There was times where she was 95% out of my mind, and I was, 95% encompassed in the rest of my life and other relationships, and she was always kind of in the back of my head. But I wanted to allow God to direct me fully and not hold on to something that I wanted, but I wanted to walk completely 100% in faith. And so for the first time, I remember I was on a plane ride to Dubai and just praying about this decision, whether I should date this girl or whether I should wait for Lex, who I've been wanting to date for all these years. And now it's finally probably going to make sense and work out. But I wanted to show the Lord that I was willing to do whatever he wanted me to do. And so I prayed about it and felt like I should move forward with re-engaging with this other girl and try dating her a second time. And I made the decision in my head that I was completely done and cut her out of my head completely for the first time in 6 years. And it was one of the hardest things I've had to do. And I was going to move forward 100% with this relationship to really fill it out to see if it was right. So I did that. And I went to get to know her family. And she lives in a different state. And so I spent 2 weeks over Christmas with her and was just 100% in and was looking for a confirmation to marry this other girl. And through those couple weeks of being with her family and rekindling this relationship, I was trying to receive that answer that, yes, this is it. And I just felt frustrated the whole time, just like, it just doesn't quite feel right. And by the end of that 2 weeks, I just felt despair, just like I thought that this was what I was supposed to do, and I'm just feeling an emptiness. And so I remember at the end of that trip, the last day of that trip, I just knelt down and said a prayer and said, Heavenly Father, I just give me some kind of hope or light or something. I just feel so low right now. And right then my phone buzzed and I got up for my prayer, and it was the mother-in-law, Lex's weekly email, which I hadn't been reading for a couple months at this point because I was trying to be 100% in with this other relationship. And I was just so low that I just said, I got to read this. And so I open up this email and the Spirit just floods. And as I'm reading, I just feel, this is what I want to feel in my marriage and in my relationship. This is what I have been longing for the feeling I've been longing for this past 2 weeks, trying to get with this other girl, is what I got by reading Lexi's letter. Just that spiritual connection we had, I couldn't find it over years of dating so many other people. And I don't believe that there's only one person for everybody, but I do believe that she was the one, as Michael Scott would say.
The one.
And I just couldn't find anyone else that I could connect with on that level. And I just knew we would have such a tremendous marriage and relationship. And I just wasn't that sure about some of these other girls I dated. I thought we had good relationships, but I knew there was a best out there, a best scenario. And so it was just so hard to look past that. So anyway, I received that answer I was looking for, and it wasn't to marry this other girl. It was, again, God putting her back in my head. And so right then and there, I text Tammy, her mom. I said, Tammy, I need to come get a haircut, which is code for we need to chat, because she was my hairdresser at the time. And so I flew home the next day and went straight to Tammy's. And Tammy at this time knew that I was dating this other girl and thought that I was coming over to tell her that I was going to be getting married to this other girl. And so she was prepping all the sisters, saying, hey, be happy, act happy for Parker if he says he's getting married. And so I come over and she's ready to hear me break the news. And so I'm telling her how my week went. And I said, I was trying to receive an answer to know if I should marry this girl. And she's prepping for the answer. And I say, and instead I had your daughter in the back of my head. And I need to know right now, Tammy, am I nuts? Am I crazy? Or is there something there?
Since he had never heard any encouragement from me.
I had no idea where her brain was at.
Yeah.
There was no reciprocation. And at this point, I needed something. I'm like, God keeps putting this girl in my head, and I need to know if there's something there or not.
Yeah.
Tammy, give me something. And Tammy breaks down crying. I shouldn't tell you this. I'm like, tell me whatever you're not supposed to tell me. That's what I came here to hear. It's like, okay. We just talked to Lexi over Christmas, and we told her to send a video message to her boyfriend. And what do you say?
I just finally expressed to my mother that the only person I really wanted to talk to was Park, and that I missed him. And he was kind of always in the back of my head while I was out there.
And so Tammy tells me that. She says, she said the exact same phrase that you just said to me, that you've been in the back of her head. And that was a lot. That was a lot of information for me to get.
Those were words of thunder.
It was more than I'd ever heard from her in reciprocation. But that was all I needed. I said, okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know.
I still had another year left.
I know I'm not crazy. There is something there. There is potential. Yeah, she still had another year left on her mission. But I knew that there was a spark there and that there was an inkling that that could work out. And so even if it wasn't her, I knew what God was telling me that I needed to go after. And even though it was sad with this other relationship that in a lot of ways we were very compatible, but that one element wasn't there. That spiritual connection was most important to me, and knew I had to do it, and was willing to follow those promptings. And I broke it off. Again, it was hard, but a year goes by, I date a bunch of people, and I just continue to get more and more confirmed that this is the woman for me. Every person I dated, lots of great gals, but for me, I just couldn't find anyone that I felt so compatible with. And I remember the last couple weeks right before she got home, my prayers shifted from, is she the right one, to I had gotten to a point where I was, even though we hadn't ever dated, I was so sure that we would be awesome together. And part of it was because around this time, just a month or two before she got home, I hit up Matt Townsend and, was kind of struggling with this, like, should I be waiting around for her, or should I just be going full throttle dating other people? And Matt just said something I'll never forget. He said, 2 people that center their life in Christ, God's not going to say no to that. A relationship will always work out if both people center their lives in Christ. And he taught us later that he calls it the love triangle. And basically, when 2 people get closer to Christ, they get closer to each other. Their relationship improves as they become more like Christ. And it was something my mom had taught me years earlier, saying, try to find somebody who loves God more than they love you. And at the time, it was weird advice. I was like, what does that even mean? Love God more than me, what? And, at this point, with Matt giving me that advice, it finally clicked. It was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And so I had gotten to the point where I had been centering my life in Christ. I knew she was out on her mission, centering her life in Christ. I had known that spiritual connection we'd had, and I no longer had to pray about, is this right? I remember praying one night, and as I was saying that, I just felt like, I know it's right. I know that as long as we both put Christ first, that we're going to have a happy marriage. Not a perfect marriage, but a happy, successful marriage. And so my prayer shifted from, is she the right one, to, please help me do everything I need to not screw this up so that this can work out between us. Help me to continue to center my life in Christ. And so she got home, and
Park doesn't find this moment as significant as I do, because he claims he felt this way the whole time. So I finally came online, apparently. But I got home. It was the day after I got home, and my mom texted Park and let him know he could come over and say hi. And he came in and we embraced, and it was like, I'm not a cheese person, but it was like out of all of the movies, just a moment where the connection was so real and deep. I was so thrilled to see him. And as we were just talking and spending time with, all my little sisters and my mom too, we weren't alone, but I just felt like such a deep spiritual connection. And we were having a conversation that was not in words. That was kind of, it's hard to describe. It really was just more of a feeling than something I can really articulate, but it was like my soul knew his, and I had finally come home. So you would think at that point I would be completely sure, but I had, some trauma from my almost marriage in the past. And so I had really committed to myself on my mission that I was going to not make the same mistake again and rush into something without fully knowing. And so I was very careful, but thankfully Park was prepared for this moment. But
so she gets home and we have our first embrace, and it was great. And then a couple of days later, a double date opportunity gets brought up with Brady and Sarah.
Once again.
Sarah coming in clutch again. And so they set up an opportunity for us to go on a double date. And I just was nervous as heck for this date. This was potentially our last first date. I mean, you got to think now, it's been over 6 years since that original picture where I knew, and it was like the fourth quarter final shot. This is it. I had screwed it up 5 other rounds, 5 other summers of, but at this point she's served a mission. She's actually looking to get married. And so I'm like, all right, this is my chance. Don't screw this up.
Yeah.
So we go on this date, we go to Temple Square, we go get some sushi, and we have a great date, and it feels good. And as I'm driving home, I'm just like, I just don't know what to expect from this woman. Like I felt great like I always do on this date, but I don't know if she's going to freak out and ghost me again. So I'm just nervous as heck. And then I get this text from her.
Do we have to read it?
I have to read it. Park, I had so much fun. Thanks so much for the sushi and temple, and especially for Leche video with 2 emojis. You are a true inspiration. I know why the bajillion followers started. I'm a fan. 2 heart eye emojis.
Oh,
5
my
emojis.
Gosh. I'm like
in one text.
Sweating with embarrassment at this moment.
She had never sent me an emoji in 6 years.
No.
And she just sent 5 emojis in one text. Double heart eye. Needless to say, it was way out of character for her to show that much emotion,
it was
and
above
interest
and beyond
and
for
reciprocation into me.
True communication. He had not experienced such from me ever.
And I'm sitting in my driveway. I just pulled into my house after the date, and I'm sitting in my driveway reading this text. And after I read that text, I just start bawling. And I just say a prayer to Heavenly Father, and I say, thank you so much for getting me here. That was the hardest 6 years of my life. I just couldn't believe that it might actually be working out.
Yeah,
now.
6.5 by then.
But after that awesome first date, we're like, all right, we're going to start going on some more dates and dating, taking this serious for the first time. But she lets me know, she sits me down, we have a little DTR, a little determine the relationship here.
Yeah.
And she says, I want to date. I want us to be exclusive, but...
No, I didn't say exclusive.
She didn't say the word exclusive. She alluded to the fact that she wanted to date, like continue dating.
Yeah.
Progress the relationship. But she said, I'm also going to be dating a lot of other guys at the same time. And I said, great. You do what you got to do, because guess what? I've already received my answer, and I'm pretty dang confident that this is going to work out. And I want you to have the same confidence in this. I don't want you to marry me just because I feel confident. I need you to have that same confidence. So go do what you got to do to get the same answer. And so for the next month, she would go on 20 or so dates while her and I were going on dates.
Yeah.
I would take her to the temple. We'd go on a little date in the afternoon. I'd drop her off. And as I drop her off, there would be a guy waiting in her driveway to take her on a second date that day. And I'd say, go give him your best.
That only happened one time.
But that was the scenario we were in.
But it was, yes, mortifying, extremely uncomfortable. But Park, once again, he had a very great opportunity to demonstrate his deep character. And I dated a lot of great people, and they all were awesome. Park definitely shined in that area though. Like
shoned.
He shoned. He even if he felt I don't know that he even actually felt threatened or jealous, but he never once let on. If he did, he was completely confident, very encouraging, positive, and always like so good to me, despite the ringers that he had to keep jumping through. So,
there was times that it was annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
But I'd gotten this far, man. What's another month of just waiting for her to come around? And
you did great. You did.
And honestly, I wanted her, again, I wanted her to have all the, I had been dating for 6 years. I knew what I wanted, and I wanted her to pick me because she loved me the most. I didn't want her to do it just because it was in front of her and it was comfortable. So I wanted her to go the rounds, and I wanted her to know that, go into that marriage, potential marriage, with eyes completely open, seeing all the options. And so I was fully supportive of it. And I just knew it would make for a better marriage for us if she could have that experience to just know what's out there and make a decision, having gone through and exhausted all of her options. And so she did that for about a month. Kind of hard, but we were grateful for it.
And we did not kiss during
Still
that
hadn't
time.
Kissed. And mind you, I can count 6 or 7 moments where we both felt, through these 7 years, where we both felt like a kiss was there, and we were just inches away. All she had to do was turn like that, and we would kiss, and she was stiff as a board every single time. So at this point, I'm thinking, I don't know if I'll ever be able to kiss her, because I have to go 110%. Like if I went 100, she'd probably turn. And so I'm trying to like get to a point to get a first kiss. We'd gone on 4 or 5 dates at this point. And eventually we get to a place and we have our first kiss. And
well, we were exclusive at that point.
At that point we were now exclusive. No, we weren't. You were still dating.
I maybe went on one other date, and then, the one. Anyways, someone.
So anyway, we have our first kiss, and it's finally like seals the deal for her. Okay, like we also have a physical connection there, and it's not just spiritual, like where there's actually some attraction. And so
it's scary. You don't know. Like we've been best friends forever. Like what if we're just friends?
7 years, I finally got out of the friend zone.
You were so patient. It's true.
So we have our first kiss, and still a couple of weeks after that, she still was dating other people.
I think you're wrong on that timeline, but
no, I'm pretty accurate on it. I got all the dates. You guys can message me for the dates and all that. But anyway, I'm about to go on a trip to New Zealand for work for 2 weeks, and the day before I leave for New Zealand, she says, "Okay, I'm ready to start dating exclusively." And I'm like, I'm about to leave for 2 weeks. Like, this is a perfect opportunity for you to get all the dating out of your system while I'm gone. She's like, "No, I'm done. I'm done now." I'm like, "Really? Our first 2 weeks of exclusivity is going to be me on the other side of the world? You're really going to do that to me right now?" But that's just, I was kind of used to this. But I'm like, all right, yeah, that sounds about par for the course. So let's do that.
That would be fun.
So our first 2 weeks of exclusively dating was over FaceTime.
Yep. It was great.
Ate up, I don't know, $500 worth of data over there.
Shoot.
I mean, we're talking 5-6 hours a day of FaceTiming.
And Snapchatting.
We just fell in love those 2 weeks, just FaceTiming away. And the week I got back, 1 week of exclusively dating in person.
He's a little confused about the timelines, but
I got them all here.
Yeah.
After 1 week of in-person exclusive dating, she was ready to get married.
I was.
And I'm like, wait, hold on. I've been waiting 7 years to date you, and you give me a week, and you just want to get married now? Are you sure about that?
Yes.
And she was sure.
I was sure. I knew, but at that point, so. Yeah, and then how the turntables. Then Park had some whoa, I'm not sure now.
Well,
and
let me date for a minute.
Anyways, after all that time of being so sure, he suddenly was unsure.
I was sure about dating. Like, let's at least give this a shot. And she didn't want to date at all. She wanted to go from friend zone to married.
Yeah.
And I'm like, everything has its season.
I was ready.
Let's just date for a bit. So we dated probably 3 months before we got engaged.
No, it was longer than that.
It was February when we had that discussion.
You didn't propose until June.
All right, 4 months.
Yeah.
So we dated exclusively for 4 months, got engaged, 3 months of engagement, and then got married.
Yep.
And that's our story.
That's the beginning of it, at least.
So anyway, that's our story. It's a long one. Sorry for how long that is, but it's an important one for us. We felt, like I said, we felt God's divine hand on a dozen or so occasions, just pushing us back in the direction we needed to go. And, a lot of bumps and learning experiences along the way, but it ultimately shaped us into the people that we needed to be at the time we needed to be them in order to start our marriage. And we've had a tremendously happy marriage. Again, not perfect, but we go to bed every night thinking just how happy and blessed we are. And we know that we owe that to the Lord guiding us. And I know that love triangle is real, that the closer we get to God, the closer we get to each other. And there's been times in our marriage where I'd say more so me, but where one of us won't be as focused on God, and we can tell that our marriage isn't doing as well. And as soon as we put God back at the center, things start connecting. We get on the same page, and life's just better with God in between a marriage at the top and in the center of a marriage.
Totally. I testify that what my companion has said is true.
Eternal companions.
But that's why my mission truly was the best decision I ever made, because every good thing in my life has come as a result of that. And first and foremost, that is our marriage. I would just add that our God is a God of miracles. We have been firsthand witnesses of those throughout our lives, and He has so much power to create beauty from ashes, basically, and turn all of the hard and awful and sad things, into beautiful things. And even just, I've realized lately how much probably one of the lowest, darkest times of my life was right before my mission. And it was the same for Park, where we felt a lot of Satan's power, honestly, and our mental and emotional health was not good. And I just think that it's important for us to remember sometimes when we're in the darkest times that the sun is about to rise, It's always darkest before the dawn. And if we can just look up and reach up for our Heavenly Father's hand, He will provide miracles and show us the way forward, and He can make beautiful things from broken things. And so it's been such a privilege for us to have that waiting period. I think we appreciate each other a lot more. And there's not one right way to date and to fall in love and to get married, but for us, I think that made Park the man that he is, and it made me the woman I am, and helped us because we got to the chance to develop that relationship with the Lord first before we developed our relationship, really. And so that was a gift, and it is a gift that keeps on giving in our lives. So, yeah. Yeah,
I'll just echo that Lex has shaped me into the man. Anything good that's come out of me, I remember the first date I went on, I told my buddy that was doubling with at the time, I said, whoever marries that girl, she is going to drag them to the celestial kingdom. And he was like, that's kind of weird to say, bro. Why don't you slow down there, Tiger? But I truly felt that I felt like she was just somebody who I knew was going to stay faithful to the Lord. And I wanted to have that same strength. And I wanted to be someone who had that same strength. I didn't want to be dragged in a marriage, and I didn't want to drag someone in a marriage. I wanted an equal partner who was on the same page, and we were after the same goals. And any marriage can work if you put God first. I believe that more than anything I know, because I've experienced it firsthand. And so whether you're dating, whether you're on the rocks with your marriage, whether you're, wherever you're at, just know that if you turn to God, if you both, at least one of you, but especially if both of you can turn to God, He can make anything work. So that is our story. That's our marriage. We're still figuring things out as we go. Kids definitely have thrown a wrench in things.
Maybe another night.
Talk about parenting another time. But
and our lack of knowledge about it.
Just one step at a time.
Yeah.
But no, we're happy. We love the Lord. We love the gospel. And we say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Per pound, these two people have more photographs than any other human on earth. And if you're like me, you're sick of it, okay? So, hey, save some photo paper for the rest of the world. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to get negative. I just want to give you some feedback. Here's some things to get serious about. So I've kind of talked to both of them in very intimate, personal settings. And let me tell you the coolest secret, because if I can tell you everything I know about how they got together, there's really only one way it happened. And it had really, it sounds weird, it had less to do with them and more to do with the Lord. Because if it were up to them on any given minute, when one was in the relationship, the other one was out of it. They're so messed up. And so when one was there ready to go, chomping at the bit, the other was busy, preoccupied with something else. Yet this person would stop and allow that to happen. So one of the things they taught me is a really cool principle that some people won't understand or like. But I don't believe just that you should fall in love with what's called reciprocal love. I don't think you should bank your marriage on the fact that if I love you, you will eventually love me back. And when you love me back, that'll give me energy to love you, and you'll love me, and it'll just be a mutual love fest. Okay? Because that would be great. But honestly, what I've learned just through my coaching is that sometimes the most important love you'll ever have, which I think they've already reached, and which is interesting because you don't usually reach it at the beginning of your relationship, is what I call a revealed love. Because each of these people, they both made decisions to basically follow promptings. And the promptings led them to live a principle at the right time in their life. And the promptings to live a principle got Lexi on a mission and turned her direction a completely different way, which created space. And in that space, Parker followed promptings, which actually led him to certain principles, which gave him confidence while Lexi was gone that she would be there eventually. And Parker would come over to our house and was just happy, waiting, not even knowing if he'll have Lexi someday, but just confident that he would, because he had the peace. So what they taught me is that principles and promptings are what create the peace. Period. Principles and promptings create peace. And when you stick to the plan of knowing the principles you live your life by, and you follow the promptings that come through the Spirit, you will have the promise of peace. And they did it. Parker drove Lexi crazy because she wanted letters on her mission. It's the least you could have done. And he wouldn't, right? He wrote her, I don't know, 5 times. Loser. And he's just lucky she followed him. But the irony is, he was prompted not to. And the weird thing about that is it kept her engaged. It kept her focused. Because others were writing her every day. And that didn't. keeper is focused. The prompting to not write changed things. The prompting for Lexi to be on the mission changed things. So, can I just suggest to all of us, and this is the lesson they've lived, and it's amazing, because really, they have now a revealed relationship that honestly, it didn't just start physically, and it didn't just start with lots of fun dates, because they never dated in seguida, what's the word? In continuous manner. Some Spanish kicking back 30 years later. You're sending me the mission vibe. I got it. So anyway, I gotta wrap it up. So, but here's the other thing. It's really cool. One of my favorite quotes, and this is weird. It's by a guy named Victor Hugo, right? Anybody know what book Victor Hugo wrote? Right, The Miserables. The Miserables, play too. Les Miserables. But in the book, he has a quote, and it goes like this. But he says, "You must be like the bird who, halting in its flight on a limb too slight, feels the limb give way beneath him, yet sings, knowing that it hath wings." Okay, one more time. You must have the confidence of a bird that's about to land on a limb that can't hold it. And when the limb breaks beneath the bird, what does it do? It sings. Why does it sing? Because it has wings. There is amazing power in recognizing that your peace does not come from where you sit. Your peace does not come from who you're married to. Your peace should not come from how much profitability you have in your company. Your peace cannot come from your perch. Your peace doesn't come from anything except you knowing you have the ability to fly. Though that ability comes from principles. Birds, when they fly, they don't fly air, they fly principles. Lift, drag, thrust, they're flying principles. And if I took a parakeet and I took a pilot and I hung them out over the Grand Canyon, one of them would sing. And the other would freak out. Because birds fly principles and pilots fly airplanes. It's different. The number one bit of advice I've ever learned in my life, and I really discovered it right around when Sarah and Brady got married, is your peace will never come from your partner. I truly believe there's only one place we look to for peace. And when you look to your Lord, to your God for peace, and you allow Him to prompt you, He will lead you to the principle you need in that moment. And their marriage is a witness of that. It's a pure witness of it. And you don't have to be a real churchgoer to believe it. You can find it in Buddha too. It's happening. It's just being present. And that was the last piece. They're present. And they were present even when the other wasn't there. So, honestly, it's an honor to speak here, but it's an honor too to know that I've known them. And it's real. It's real. And it's not going to be as easy as it's been. And it's been hard. It'll get hard. That's how it works. But to all of us, we're all here now, and we can learn. And we might want to take those three ideas home. Promptings, principles, and peace. And I promise if we do, we will have, we'll be able to smile and sing when the world's cracking around us. Okay? Thanks, everybody. Thanks to you. We love you. God bless you. Thank you.